We will dive into a critical panel discussion on the future of health, moderated by Elsa Torchet, Director Life Science and Healthcare at Deloitte. Elsa, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Well, I will not do this panel alone, so I will invite on stage Katharina, General Manager of Roche Pharma, Professor Guy Haller, Chief Physician of the Quality of Care Department at the CHUV, but also Raphael Gottardo, the Founder Director of the Biomedical Center of the CHUV. Can you please join me? So we have talked about many challenges that the Swiss healthcare system is facing now. We have also seen like many solutions that individual hospitals and researchers, but also startup or also the pharma ecosystem is trying to bring to the table. And now we would like to deep dive a bit more on, okay, how do we continue to build this resilient system? Do we feel that we are ready for these changes, and what are the concrete solutions that we are bringing also here in this roundtable? And to do that, I would like to start with you, Guy, talking about what you have implemented at the CHUV, and trying to explain us what are the concrete solutions that you bring using these new care models, but also what are the challenges that you face in getting that done.
Thank you, Isla. So as you rightly said, chronic disease is really an issue, partly because you need a lot of different health practitioners on type of different cares, nutritionists, physiologists on different type of specialties as well. And the issue is, as it's been nicely presented first, our healthcare system is quite fragmented. So at Geneva University Hospital, to solve a bit these issues, we developed a new model of care for different categories of surgeries. The data I will provide today relate to pulmonary, colorectal and hip replacement surgery only, but the results are quite impressive. So what we did is actually assessing the patients before surgery and then integrated them into a clinical pathway within the hospital, but not only within the hospital, but also outside the hospital. So we have a nurse who is trialing the patients towards one or the other direction, depending on the number of scores we have. And if the patient is, for instance, in high need of integrated care at home, we have nearly some type of home hospital that is already organized before the patients leave the hospital. And the figures are really impressive because, for instance, over 1 year, on a collective group of 400 patients, we managed to decrease length of stay by 30%. Admission to rehabilitation hospitals rather than home by 20%. And mostly interesting is also the cost. So we saved approximately 1.4 million Swiss francs. So
in such a short period.
Works.
Yeah. All right, and is it also something that you plan to scale at the CHUV? Do you have other initiatives in the pipeline that you would like to scale?
Yeah, we plan really to scale up this model a bit further to different type of surgery, but not only surgery, but also other type of care, medical care as well. Because I think the idea of preparing the patients before he leaves the hospital for home care is probably one of the best way to, at the same time, decrease length of stay, improve patient satisfaction, and at the end of the game, improve care.
Thanks a lot, Guy. And maybe, Katharina, if we can get your perspective from the industry on, have you seen this outpatient model changing and the financing of this in the recent years?
It's a very good question. And outpatient care, there's going to be a big change in Switzerland, right? That we have EFAS coming. We want to have the patients not hospitalized. And the hospital at home or home care is also a topic that is important because people want to have care where they are and do not want to travel too much, or maybe it's complicated to live far away. And I think it needs both. It needs hospitals, it needs home care, it needs different tools, but it needs also the right medication that you can actually deliver at home, maybe even by yourself. And I think that is something where, for instance, we are quite strong in multiple sclerosis, where we have a drug that has been given intravenously. You have to take off half a day to get to the hospital, get it, and then you go home again. So when we did in life cycle management to come up with a subcutaneous form, which you can apply much faster, and also still in a setting now in a clinic or at the office of a doctor, but in the end, this should be the goal, that you can do such things at home. And then you also have a large portion of adherence that is better, compliance of patients, and it's much easier. And I think that is the way, hopefully, we will go. But the funding is a big challenge because you don't get any funding for such innovation yet. And I think that is something we'll have to discuss.
Thanks you very much. And so another challenge that was mentioned is really about the technology implementation. And here I would like to get your perspective, Raphael, on what you're doing at the CHUV. You have implemented a strategy to really tackle the challenge of implementing AI within the hospital, within the EHR as well. So can you share a bit more about what have you done first, what was your strategy, and potentially the challenges that you have faced?
Yes, thank you. I mean, I feel fortunate because Professor Rezaro actually talked a lot about some of the projects we've been involved in. I would say the strategy go from data standardization, and again, we have a great team when it comes to extracting data, clinical data, making sure things are really well standardized and ready for analysis. And so thinking about that, so access to data and then utilization of the data in the right settings and context. One of the things that we've done, which I think is quite unique within the University Hospital, is, I mean, we talk a lot about AI and data science, and we heard it throughout all the presentations that there's a huge potential for benefit, both in terms of what can be done with the data, but also the outcome to the patients. But I think what's critical when you think about implementing AI or data science in a hospital or just in the clinic in general is really having the expertise. I mean, I think just plugging in a tool without necessarily understanding where the data come from, the process, what they've been through, what the challenges, what are the key questions we're trying to answer. So the first thing we established actually in the strategy was the interdisciplinary nature of the group. So when I came and established the Biomedical Data Science Center, the goal was not just to say, look, we can do AI, send the data, we'll do it, we'll send it back to you. I mean, this is not how it works. It really works by having interdisciplinary science and interaction between clinicians, computer scientists, people who work in IT and the data warehouse. And we're already all part of a big team. And I think this was sort of the primary mission, is to understand who are the key stakeholders, who should we be working with within the hospitals. And then, as we've seen, and Professor Rezaro sort of presented some of these projects, what's fascinating about a hospital is that we are really data rich, but I would say in general, there's still few insights in, around what we do with these data compared to many other industries where there's a lot of data and these data are really used in real time. So I think there's a huge potential from that point of view, from how do we improve the operation in the hospital, and we've seen some of that. How can we guess how long a patient will stay at the hospital so that we can better manage the patient influx? Can we predict who will, develop complications after surgery or any sort of hospital visit? And then there's the whole area of precision medicine, where we also have a very active research area in predicting what should be the right treatment that we give to the patients.
And here you mentioned also, the internal trust that you're building while developing this AI tool. What about the trust that you build with the patient? What are the things you need to develop to build this trust? Because you're using their data and they need to see the value out of that.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And that's certainly something we think a lot about, when we think about trust. I mean, we heard a lot about data security, privacy, trust. especially when we talk about patient data, health data, right? It's very sensitive. And so we think about the legal aspect of what can be done with these data, what is ethical. Obviously, we don't just look at data and do research on data. We write a protocol, so there's a whole process. It gets approved, and it really goes along a long series of validation of what can be done with the data. And then obviously we work with teams to ensure that the privacy is preserved. I mean, Professor has always been doing a lot of work in that, privacy preserving technologies, where we can do things where we can maybe anonymize the data, we can only share models and never data. I mean, there's lots of things that we do, and really working with the legal team, the IT team, the ethics team, and obviously our data protection office.
Thanks a lot. Is it also something that you see, Guy, in the implementation of your projects, how building this trust with the patient?
Yeah, trust is a key issue for patients, and they need to believe on being confident that their data will be secured and used really in a careful manner. The issue in our healthcare system, it's, once again, I've already said it, but it's very fragmented, but also our devices are fragmented, our healthcare system are fragmented, but our IT systems are fragmented as well. So we have many different types of healthcare files, patient records, and patients need to understand that it's located in some place, not in 100 places, but in one place or a number of them that are interoperable, that can be exchanged between each other, between hospitals, between private practices. And at the moment, this is not the case. So if you are a patient and you have the feeling that your data are traveling around between different providers, it's not building trust. The other issue is all the data go to the cloud most often, and it's not clear where the cloud is and where the server are. And that's also an important aspect to reassure the patient that the data will be secured somewhere and not used for commercial purpose by anyone else.
Thanks a lot, Guy. And maybe Katharina on this. I know that, pharmaceutical industries are developing tons of digital health solutions. What are the tips to build also the patient trust here and to involve them in the development?
I think beside health insurances in Switzerland, pharma companies usually don't get the best trust of patients, unfortunately. Only when they are cured, then everything is okay. But I think that is very important that we gain trust. And last year we started an initiative to kind of show what happens with data, and also brought the perspective that actually when you share data, you help cure. And you could be a healthy individual, share your data, and also profit once you're ill. And so we tried to also bring in patients' voice, what has done that to them in their treatment journey, and also make sure that people who share data, they can be trusted. And you say, well, they should not be used for commercial things. I have a little different view on that. I think we can learn a lot from data, and when it's used, when data is used, we should consent, absolute have consent of patients, and it's also a value that should be paid. However, in Switzerland, the interoperability is also not yet so good. So I think we should work on the infrastructure, and be readily available data should be able to be used in CHUV, at ROCHE, at USZ, etc. And I think we still have a long way to go.
Talking about this long way to go, I'd like to get also your perspective on how ready do you feel, or how far are we from building a very resilient healthcare system in Switzerland, after listening to all our presentations, panelists?
Well, I'm an optimist. So, I mean, we have a very good healthcare system in Switzerland, and we should never forget that it's fragmented. It's maybe like, an image from Prado, or it's maybe in silos. But I think this integration of the healthcare system with the different players, with insurances, with data, with pharma, with diagnostic, I think there we should, go into that direction. Probably also healthcare initiatives like represented by Raymond help that we understand that this is the future, because unless it's not going to be financed, that's excluded, right? So I think there we should speed up, and I mean, let's speak in 10 years, we might not be so fully digitized yet, but we're on a good way.
Right, very positive. I hope, Guy, you have also a positive note to share your vision. So, as an expert in quality of care, how do you feel that we can combine the need of these aging populations and patients in general with, building a resilient system?
Aging is a key issue. Aging means chronic disease. It means multimorbidity. And the best way to avoid that first is prevention. And unfortunately, in our healthcare system at the moment, prevention is not so much reimbursed. So I think there should be a bit more thinking about this aspect. The other aspect is really integrated care. It's already been presented by several presenters before. But I think that's an important aspect to having all healthcare professionals working together for the best care of patients. And there are very interesting examples in Switzerland where you have health center, which include not only specialists, but also pharmacists, nutritionists, physiologists, and even places where patients can be taken care by, and even places where they can live. So it's somehow, we call it in French, maison de santé, and I think that's really a very interesting concept that is emerging now, and that's probably going to be widely spread out in Switzerland. The last aspect, it's been already talking about, it's data, because data is really key. We can use data to improve patient care through IA, through analysis, through reflection feedback to physicians as well, to improve quality, because without data you can't measure what you do, so you can't reflect on what you do, and you can't think about improvement methods. So this aspect is as well very important, and I think we have really improvements to make in that area as well. But I would like to end with a positive perspective, because this is really the future and we see it today. So thank you.
Thank you, Guy. And finally, Raphael, we've been very Swiss-centric. Maybe you can bring a bit of your experience working in the US. And we know that the US healthcare system is not necessarily the best one, but maybe there are like some lessons learned from innovation and technology perspective that you would like to bring here.
Yeah, this is great. So first, I always hear the US health system is not good. I mean, it's really sort of bimodal, right? I mean, if you have access to it, it's actually very good. There's some very good health systems. I mean, we heard about Kaiser Permanente, which is actually excellent, and it's well centralized. And this is where I used to go, actually. But the point is that before moving to Switzerland, I had never seen sort of a prescription on paper. And I've been in the US for like, over 20 years. I didn't even know that people would still do that until I moved to Switzerland. So, I want to be optimistic, and I think there are great things. It's a small country, it's well-funded, there's a lot of great resources, there's great science, there's great infrastructure, there's great hospitals. But when it comes to digital, I think we have to be realistic that we are far, far behind, to the point where I don't know if we'll be able to catch up. And I think it's very important to think about that, because we do want to catch up, and I think we can, but if we think that we have everything we need, we're not going to, right? So I think we have to kind of change the mentality and say we have to invest massively, not only in AI, but in infrastructure. Having a Swiss-wide infrastructure, I'm not sure it's not such a great idea to begin with, because we have different systems, and so I think it's better to try to invest locally and have things that work. So instead of doing sort of, top down, let's do bottom up, and making sure that the main hospitals, university hospitals, have a system that works well. We can sort of harmonize that, making sure maybe they use the same system. And then once that's working well, then maybe we can share. So maybe on a sort of a mild note, I think there's some very positive things, and I think we're doing really well, but I think there's a long way to go.
Thanks a lot. And so we'll be happy to continue the discussion during the apéro or dinner tonight. But thank you, everyone, for your thoughts.
Thank you so much.